Te reo ererangi o te mānia. This episode was produced in Otatahi by Plains Media, with support from New Zealand On Air.
Kia ora and welcome to Emergence News on Plains Media, broadcasting across Canterbury on 96.9 FM. And here on Emergence News, we focus on the spiritual and the political. And in every age, great spiritual teachers come forth to inspire us to make the changes necessary for the future evolutionary growth that's necessary. Teachers such as Hercules, Krishna, Muhammad, Buddha, and the Christ. And now as we enter the Aquarian age, the Aquarian era, Maitreya has descended from his ancient retreat in the Himalayas to take up residence among humanity. Back in July 1977, he arrived in London, and London continues to be his point of focus in the modern world. His primary concerns are economic, political, and the social imbalances in the world today. And a good example of that is the gap between the rich and the poor. He will present to us two alternative scenarios. We can continue what we're doing currently, the selfish and greedy way, or we accept the principle of sharing. It will generate and guarantee a peaceful and prosperous future for humanity. So that's a bit about the program and what we cover. And in the studio joining me are Peter and John. Good morning, Peter.
Hello there, Nigel.
And good morning, John.
Good morning, Nigel. Good morning, Peter.
Hi there, John.
What are you looking at today, John? You look poised, ready to go. Look at that book.
Nigel, I'm poised. Last program we were looking at the Share International mag, and I was looking at the importance of being aware, awake and open-minded. And I read through that article and felt that I wasn't qualified in any of those arenas. However, I thought I would kick off with the problem of glamour as kind of an intro for what Benjamin Creme says around those three skills: aware, awake and open-minded.
Wonderful. And we'll be back in just a moment. I've got a little gem for John. I'll talk about that in just a tick.
Has it got coffee in it?
You're with Emergence News, and it's wonderful to have your company. And in the studio are John and Peter. And one of the great joys that I experience being a part of this program, producing and co-hosting this program, is that every now and then one of these two gentlemen, they say something and it goes, something in me goes ding, and I ponder on it and I think about it, and then I have a realization. And last time, John, you spoke about the superpowers that you've gained or are gaining through the application of meditation in your life. You spoke of the increasing gap between experience and reaction.
Mm-hmm.
It really got me reflecting on myself and my behaviour. And it was quite interesting because I've been reading The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama in this period of time that I've been pondering over the gap and trying to increase calmness in my life between experience and reaction. And the Dalai Lama was talking about hatred and anger. And to quote him, he says, "Enthusiasm results from reflecting upon the beneficial effects of tolerance and patience and the destructive and negative effects of anger and hatred. And that very act, that very realization in itself will create an affinity towards feelings of tolerance and patience and will make you feel more cautious and wary of angry and hateful thoughts." He says once we develop a cautious attitude towards these emotions, that reluctant attitude itself can act as a preventative measure against anger and hatred. And the Dalai Lama also says someone who gains victory over hatred and anger through such arduous processes is, in his view, a true hero.
So it's developing the pause. And I guess, Nigel, that comes from being a little bit calmer, more calm, and the ability to pause on your emotional response.
Yeah, well, as we said last time, Bruce Lee constantly talks about the art of calmness and remaining calm, and you immediately said, well, it's a superpower.
We've talked a lot about the two pillars in our society at the moment, science and religion, and I'm going to put spirituality in that religion bucket, and how they're coming closer together, and how Maitreya talks about the science of life, Benjamin Creme talks about the science of initiation, the science of improvement, if you like. When we talk about calmness, there's some phenomenal research now on breathing and its ability to slow your heart rate and its ability to calm you down. Breathing, right? And I work in a high-stress environment where we talk a lot about cognitive loading. And at the moment, the science of breathing is creeping into my business practice. And it's been very interesting because a lot of the Eastern philosophers talk about breathing to control the physical body, to manage emotions, to manage the physical body. And science is now saying, yeah, it does. I find that really interesting.
So you're talking about not just meditation, but also breathing, effective breathing techniques. And I guess that's why yoga is also popular.
Right. And yoga is a really nice combination, isn't it? Targets the mind and the body. And some yoga schools do teach breathing. But yeah, this science of breathing. So my meditation practice doesn't include breathing, but I've picked breathing up as another kind of tool in my golf bag of life tools to kind of manage, to, I guess, maybe widen that gap, Nigel, deepen that gap between the experience and the reaction.
You were tapping into the meshing, the coming together of science and religion. And I was thinking, when you were talking about the 7 rays, there's a wonderful example of where science is an integral part of the evolution of humanity, isn't it?
And we're going to see more and more of that as the 7th ray comes in with Aquarian energy.
And the education of the future.
Indeed. It's going to be group work from here on in.
Is that what we're doing?
Group work?
Yeah.
Definitely. In the studio, we're working together. And I think sometimes it's a bit, a lot of people say, why were the Beatles so successful? Were they individually such brilliant musicians? And they probably weren't. There was an X factor. There was an additional X factor that was created from those 4 particular individuals coming together.
That's right.
And they created magic.
I forget the quote, but it goes along the lines of the qualities of the group outweigh the qualities of the individual. And actually the Beatles are a really good example because once they split up, I don't think any of the individuals did actually reach the heights of what they did as a group.
The magic was gone.
Well, Paul McCartney and Wings, I didn't think, kind of, okay, Paul, nice, okay. But not the effect on the population that the Beatles had as a group.
That's really interesting because George Harrison had the most successful solo album, All Things Must Pass, and it was a triple album, not a double album, but a triple album, and over 90% of that album was written while he was a Beatle.
And you're joking, and they didn't let him...
That's right.
Because if you've watched
He only got 2 songs per album from 65 onwards, 1960.
I love the way you know this stuff.
Well, it's what made him a bit bitter.
Because, listeners, if you've watched the Beatles documentary that was put together by the New Zealand director Peter Jackson from footage, it is an interesting look in the dynamics, and you can see there
The control of McCartney and Lennon.
The control, absolutely, and that George Harrison kind of sat there and bit his tongue and bided his time. I didn't understand that his solo LP was the most successful.
Yeah, so he released it in 1970-71. My Sweet Lord was the hit single from it.
Yeah.
But most of that material was written between 67 and 1970, and a lot of it, particularly when they were in India.
Yeah.
And that triple album is easily the most successful album released by a Beatle when they went solo.
So his suppression as a Beatle exploded after he was, I guess, released.
Yes, and interestingly, so he was the first Beatle to have a number one. And in 1974, Ringo Starr had a big hit called Photograph.
Yeah.
Guess who wrote that?
George.
Yeah.
My TM buddy George.
Yeah. So, and what's even more interesting about George Harrison is, according to Benjamin Cream's master, he was a 0.9 initiate. So
yes.
he hadn't reached the first initiation.
But McCartney and Lennon hadn't they?
Well, we don't know about McCartney yet, but of course Lennon was a 1.5, 1.6. Yes. So, Lennon was right up there, and I'd love to know what Yoko's level of initiation is, because she had a huge influence on him.
And you can see it in that documentary.
Yeah, there's something very special. He was truly in love. Yeah.
And gave up everything.
Yes. And I quite like how he detached himself from all the fame and glamour and money and all the riches that the Beatles created. And he was a happier man just being married, and they had a son called Sean.
Yeah. And
he says that he finally found some solace and peace during that period of time from 75 to 80 before he was shot.
So I'd like, and I don't think Benjamin Cream's ever talk about it, a take on his assassination. Why was Lennon assassinated? Karma? Was it his karma? Or was it just a lone madman? Or do you know what I mean? That when you talk about Lennon in that spiritual sense, and I'm talking John Lennon, not the other guy, what was the assassination about?
He said at the height of Beatlemania that we're more popular than Jesus. And I've got a feeling that was...
might have triggered something in someone?
Yes, and sometimes the karmic reaction or the response in people over a period of time, it can grow and fester rather than...
Yeah,
I really do think that strategically that was a mistake he made. But of course, when you're a part of the momentum of something like Beatlemania, it would have been very hard for your ego not to get overinflated and lose a bit of control.
Which leads us to Glamour, which I've got right here in front of me. Shall I start? Okay, this is my favourite book at the moment, The Art of Cooperation, and I'm looking at part 2, The Problem of Glamour. I'll give a little bit of an intro into what Benjamin Cream says. Actually, it's by the master through Benjamin Cream. Of all the problems which beset humanity, there is none greater than the problem of glamour. It provides the basis for all our difficulties and dangers and holds the vast majority of humanity in thrall. It is at the root of every division and cleavage and the source of every dimension of pain and suffering. It has its roots in the ancient past of mankind, and all but a very few are held under its sway. He goes on to say, essentially, glamour originates in man's sensuous feeling apparatus, the emotional or astral body, and in man's identification with its action. Through wrong identification with his feelings and emotions, his nature, he has surrounded himself with and lost himself in thick fogs of illusion and unreality. This constitutes the glamour in which most people live out their lives. Glamour is illusion on the plane of the emotions and provides the greatest obstacles to progress for the individual and for the race. It throws a multitude of misconceptions across the path of the unwary. And the loftiest idealist is no freer from its influence. Nay, he is frequently more prone than the hardened cynic. So when we look out at our modern world, we can see that issue, right? It permeates everything. So I had a bit of a think about it, and I kind of came up with, I'm prone to mistakes. I'm prone to glamour. I'm prone to being wrong. And belief, and this is my personal observation, belief should be up for debate in a healthy way, up for negotiation, and up for change. I'm not a second-degree initiate. I'm not a third-degree initiate. I'm not a fourth-degree initiate. And I guess you two guys know that, right? But this story, Maitreya's story, makes a lot of sense to me. It answers my questions and it gives me hope. So then I've dived into this article that I think you looked at too, Peter.
Yeah,
and
the Art of Cooperation, is it?
Yeah, it's the article on page 10 of the latest share. And it's under a couple of headings: awareness, waking up, and open mind. And he gives, this is by Benjamin Creme, it's actually a compilation. Awareness. Awareness is crucial, not only in service, but in every single action you take in life. In fact, in every moment, awareness is the be-all and end-all of your reason for being here. You are in incarnation to grow in conscious awareness. That is what evolution is about. You cannot separate awareness and service from awareness in general. If the reason for being an incarnation is to grow in consciousness, awareness, then conscious awareness should be governing factor in everything you do. And I think one of the ongoing messages from Maitreya through Benjamin Creme is you can't be one thing in one aspect of your life and another in another aspect of your life.
Otherwise you're lost.
So your behaviour must be seamless across all of your endeavours, right? And that's why Maitreya talks about politics and economics and spirituality as one practice, right? The way you behave. Let me go on to waking up. And this is a lovely headline. How can we utilise the information better, and what are we doing presently to do this? So that spiritual approach to life. You've got to think about it more, says Benjamin Creme. Put it into action more. Take it more seriously. Study it more. Go back to the books. Read it over and over. Listen to the tapes. Put it into practice. Whatever we hear does us no good at all. It can be the most wonderful words of wisdom and truth coming from the exalted master, unless we make it part of our life. We have to make it our own. It is only valuable if it awakens something in us, if it throws light. Otherwise, it's just words. But if we can respond to those words, actually put them into effect in our life, then we change. And Maitreya says, be who you are. Be yourself. Be who you are with honesty, sincerity, and detachment. And I think that awareness, that waking up, is about finding out who you are to some degree. I'm going to finish with an open mind, and I'm trying to stifle a chuckle here. An open mind. Who's got one of those? Really? You know.
Where do you get them from?
What app is that?
Well, what did Benjamin Creme say? An open mind is one of the rarest things.
It's the rarest thing on the planet. Anyway, to be open-minded, here we go. To be open-minded doesn't mean to be empty-minded. It means not to be prejudiced. To every new idea we bring to it, what is really our conditioning, our prejudice built from the cradle onwards by our parents, teachers, the life we lead, the things we read, and so on? That creates thought forms in our mind which then become fixed, and they prevent us from seeing something else. Being open-minded means being free. It means having a mind which belongs to yourself, with nothing in it which prevents you from looking objectively at new information. On the level of mind, there is neither liking nor disliking. Isn't that interesting? So the mind is a canvas, really. Benjamin Creme goes on to say, there is only what is true. If it is true, it is interesting. It may not be your path, but it is interesting. It has the ring of truth because you have not put something else in its place and rejected it. If you are free in this sense, your mind is open and you begin to learn to self-educate. The truth has its own power, the power of being which nothing can destroy. And I think that being open-minded sounds such a delicious way to be. And it's the basis of a lot of Eastern philosophy. Krishnamurti talks about freedom from the known. And I think that is such a powerful statement. Freedom from the known. What is the known? The known is the baggage. The known is the conditioning. The known is your beliefs.
Attitudes.
The known is your attitudes. The known is what you think. And being free from that.
What you think you know.
What you think you know, yeah. What you think you believe. What you think is the truth. Being free from that. Interesting stuff, isn't it?
It is.
How do you practice being open-minded? I think meditation and service. I think keeping your attention high. We've talked about that a lot. Focusing as much as you can on the ajna center. Lifting your focus away from the astral. And as you do that, it pushes your attention up through the heart chakra and into the ajna center.
You are with Emergence News here on Plains Media, 96.9 FM. And Peter, you've got a reading there for us.
Yes, this is by Benjamin Crem's master, The Art of Cooperation. More and more men are beginning to understand the severity of the problems which face them today. On all fronts, political, economic and social, these problems multiply and cause much heartache and sad shaking of heads. Add to these the environmental problems which man's cavalier attitude to nature and its resources have engendered. The future for mankind looks bleaker still. The realization is dawning that mankind's life is in crisis and that something radical must be done before it's too late. What indeed can man do to save himself from disaster? What steps can he take even to mitigate the threat of his well-being? The answer is relatively simple, but it would seem difficult for men to grasp, caught as they are in the net of their own conditioning. Men must release themselves from the poison of competition, must realize it for the glamour which it is, and seeing the oneness of all men, embrace cooperation for the general good. Only cooperation and justice will save men from a disaster of their own making. Cooperation and justice alone will guarantee their future. Considering that this is so, man has little option but to accept cooperation as the key to his salvation. When men cooperate rather than compete, they will find a magic potion entering their lives. The ease with which long-lasting problems will be solved will astonish. The impossible will yield to the lightest touch, and through cooperation alone, men will learn the true art of living. Thus will it be, and thus will men learn to appreciate the beauty of relationships which only cooperation can bestow. Through the cooperation, the new civilization will be built, the new science revealed, the new understanding manifested. Thus will men grow together in the discovery of their divinity. Thus will they know the joy and happiness of such togetherness. The masters, your elder brothers, are not strangers to cooperation. In all that they do, cooperation plays a central role. It could not be otherwise in the manifested brotherhood, where the canker of competition is unknown. It is our earnest desire that men learn the art of cooperation, and to this end shall we act as mentors, teaching through example. So liberating is cooperation, it is surprising, is it not, that men have been so tardy in learning its joys. The era of competition is fast coming to an end. With its demise, violence and war, starvation amid plenty, greed and separation will likewise fade from the memory. To replace these sorrows will emerge blessed cooperation, to guarantee to men their essential divinity. Thus will it be, and thus will men come to understand another facet in the nature of God.